Okay, seeing no opposition, we'll move forward to our October 20th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last item on our agenda is the public works update.
Good evening, Honorable Body and Madam Chair. I think it's taking us a minute to warm up here, but we're getting that going. This is going to be similar to what I did about a month ago, just giving you an update on what's going on all of our major capital projects. Things seem to be changing by the week out there, and sometimes every few days. So our big project right out front, Evergreen from Northwestern to I-696. This week you will see some mainline concrete going in. Again, that last little piece of mainline paving from north of the north roundabout up to 11 miles. Just today they were installing some more of the stamped concrete crosswalks. At the same time, you may have noticed over on Central Park Boulevard, the City Center Advisory Board has contracted separately with the same contractor, so they're doing a stamped concrete crosswalk by Travelers Tower right underneath their walkway there. So they're trying to, there's always seems to be speeding problems on that road, and they've got their parking garage on one side and a lot of pedestrians going back and forth. They're hoping that will be a visual and it's not striping that's going to wear away in a year. So remind the vehicles that they've got frequent pedestrians there. We're also going to see a lot of cleanup going on out there as they start wrapping up a lot of the final paving and some landscaping for this construction season. So on the west side, they're really starting to get working on some final grading over there, and getting irrigation lines are all going to be installed on the west side, minus just a couple gaps where some of our roundabouts aren't going to be functioning roundabouts yet. So we've got a lot of temporary pavement around those roundabouts. And then you'll see the sidewalks going in. There's still a few drive approaches that are yet to be poured on the west side. A couple that were poured already. Usually we've been taking about a week to get a full pure strength on there, so you'll see some of those drives opening up probably by next Monday. They're also going to be installing sod, and we're still talking with the contractor and our own people to make sure that the sod goes in and responsibility for it. So when the sod goes in, it's not automatically ours, but once it takes root, then it's ours. And the contractor seems to think he'll be able to get it to take root this year. It all kind of depends on the weather, what goes on. Otherwise, it may not be able to be accepted until next spring. The west side of the north roundabout has gotten started with some of that related parking lot work inside Travelers Towers property. So all that pavement removal has occurred, and they're working on the grading. And you'll see curbs going down there pretty soon as well. The Travelers Tower, we had quite a bit of impact to their parking operations on the north side of their property when we were installing that 16-inch storm sewer. That work is all complete on their property. We did that weekend closure. It was really just a one-day closure, and we got across Evergreen Road a couple days ago. They still have some of that 60-inch storm work. You'll see some pieces of the big pipe are still out there that have to go in near the rain garden area. They're looking for their shutdown of work for winter. It's probably going to be mid-November. They still got quite a bit of work to do out here. One thing that's been a little bit of a moving target, I had been under the understanding that we were going to be pretty much open to regular traffic over the winter time, and that's not going to be the case. We've got some drainage issues on this where we have the temporary pavement. You know, we still have our same old stormwater issues because that side of the road isn't done yet. And we were looking at the cost of having to install temporary catch basins to drain, and some of the mobility problems to try and keep both sides of the street open. The asphalt that's out there is a pretty thin layer. We're not, you know, that'll take a beating over the winter. We're not sure how that would survive. So the plan is to have one lane in each direction as we have now, except it will be all on the west side on the new pavement. And one of the things that also affords us is that depending on what the spring is looking like and when things start to clear up, there's still quite a bit of water main work that has to occur on the east side of the street, and that gives us the opportunity to get an early start as soon as that snow melt gets off the ground, that underground work can get started when there's still frost in the ground. Our South Evergreen project, pretty much all of the water main and storm is all in. There's just a little bit left on some of the tie-ins at the cross streets, particularly on the east side, where they'll be going second. The mainline paving on the west side is complete. They still have to get the curbs in and the drive approaches and sidewalks. So that's all going to be happening very soon. You'll see the approaches and sidewalks should be going in on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. They'll get started. Hopefully the rain stays away so it doesn't push us back there. The biggest concern, this just came up Friday, as I said, this is always progressing. DTE gas, we thought they were done and finally out of our way, and Friday they said they've got another 26-inch gas line that ran parallel with another one that they already did all their protecting that they wanted to do. Now they've got another one down between 8 Mile and their property just north of Rat Rock there. It's about 800 or so feet north of 8 Mile. So they've got about a week and a half worth of work, and they've not started yet. And even if they take a week and a half and had started today, they're already in our way. So our contractor was ready to get all the prep work and everything going on that east side of the road. And right now, it's really looking like that east half, that south piece, probably about the first 1,000 feet, may not get paved this year, and we'll be back revisiting that piece again in the spring. We'd have to do some temporary asphalt paving for that to get it through the winter because it's going to have full traffic on everything down there. So that's kind of worst case scenario. The contractor, Dan's Excavating, our main contractor down there, as well as on our north project, and he really felt like from the previous delays by DTE Gas, we were really going through to try and get all the paving done by the end of November, which was already going to be iffy, and another week and a half is probably going to make that not be possible for that whole piece. So I'm thinking the end of November, we're going to have a shutdown. It'll really be fully open to traffic, but we'll have to get some temporary pavement down, and then we've probably got another 4 to 6 weeks of construction come springtime. So that will be progressing, I'm sure, weekly. I'll let you know if anything changes there. Our 11 Mile project over by Federal Mogul's new facility is well underway. That road is under full closure right now. That's part of what Sergeant Barr was talking about. I saw him out there last week. Closed to traffic is, there's always lots of people trying to sneak through. There's not an easy route. You talk about half-mile road, well, there's nothing really over there, so people will have to drive pretty far out of their way to avoid that stretch of closed road, and everyone's trying to sneak through. So the day I was out there last week, because of all, there was heavy work right at Inkster, it was really completely closed. I mean, no one could get in there, and cars, it was kind of chaos. They were trying to get through and having to turn around in the middle of the construction zone. Our residents and property owners have been very understanding. All the properties on the south side, that some of them have access off of Inkster, so we've just closed their 11 Mile access. They've been very understanding to that. We're trying to be sensitive to Federal Mogul moving in. This week they have 250 employees that were starting to work at that facility, and over the next 3 weeks they're going to have over 1,000 employees there. So I wish our construction was 3 weeks ahead of time when we could have beat them, but they've been working very well with us, and we kept some drives partially open so they've been able to get their workers and the construction equipment as they were doing renovations in and out. Some of those drives are complete. We've got a couple more to do that they'll be paving probably by the end of this week. The median islands are being cut in this week, so cutting out some of that existing pavement and getting all those installed before they put the stone layer down. If you recall, this rehabilitation, it's not a mill and overlay like we've done on some of our other projects. We come in and we put 2-3 inches of stone down and then put a heavy asphalt cap on top. We've got 5 inches of asphalt. That's why all the curbs had to come out and all the drive approaches are being replaced because that whole road's coming up. So this is just a heavier kind of fix. We'll get more life out of it than just a mill and overlay. And then we avoid having to do a lot of undercuts that we would have expected. That road was in bad shape and showing signs of sub-base failure there. So the sidewalks and restoration on the north side, they'll be get going on that really at the same time that they're going to be pouring the curb and gutter all on the south side, and that's all going to be happening by the end of this week. They'll have several weeks of closure to facilitate this work. Contractor is trying to be conservative, saying he thinks he will be ready to pave asphalt that first week in November. We're thinking it might be earlier if we don't get too many rain days. Greenfield, between 8 and 9 Mile. Last time I was here, they were ahead of schedule. Now they seem to be just back on their regular schedule. So
because you told them that they were ahead of schedule.
I know, I jinxed it. I shouldn't have said anything. So this week, they are finishing up the 9 Mile intersection pavement, and they will be paving all the side streets that they had gapped out previously. Those are all getting pavement, and you'll see the concrete curb and gutter going in hopefully by the end of this week. So next week you'll start seeing all the sidewalks on the west side and all the driveway approaches to the businesses going in. The ADA ramps on the east side, this is the one part they think they're running out a little bit of time, and it is really more weather dependent. So the road commission seems to be not optimistic that they're going to be able to get all the ADA ramps on the east side, on the Oak Park side in this year. But everything's still in. They haven't pulled anything out yet, so they may just leave those and come back in the spring and take care of those ADA ramps at 9 Mile. In our Section 31 water main and street project, this project is still going under lots and lots of construction. This is a big project area. So we've got a few of these streets that you can see in red there that are all done. So that they've got both their layers of asphalt are down, all the restoration's complete, everyone's hooked up to the new water system, and those people are done. The next thing we've got in the green, those are the areas where the water main's done, the water services are all hooked up, we've got the first layer of pavement down, there's still restoration that's going on, and still need a final course of asphalt on those green roads. I think their next focus to complete is going to be Seminole, all the way from 8 Mile, all the way up around the curve to Inkster Road. We were not able to work out an agreement. Early on, we were trying to get an easement from Arbor Condominiums there to loop the water main from the end of Poinciana into their complex. It gave better connectivity, it gave more reliability to their complex, and we could not come to terms with getting that easement from them. So they didn't really see the benefit, and so we have abandoned that, and we still have, Poinciana is a dead end today as it was previously. I mean, it functions, that's fine, but you know, it would have been nice to have that looped so that if there's a breakdown there, you know, on the end of Poinciana, you would have been able to feed from the other end. And same thing for the Arbor Condominiums. When there's a break out on Inkster Road, their entire complex is shut down, and now they've got no alternate way to feed. So that's not any worse than it was before. We had been hoping to make some improvements. So most of the rest of the streets, the main line water main is really all in. We've got water mains that are still under the testing. They do bacteria tests a couple days in a row and pressure tests. So I'm waiting for those test results to come back, and then we'll start hooking in water services and then following up with the paving. There's probably going to be some streets that just get a base course of asphalt down over winter, and then we'll come back in the spring and get that top course of asphalt down. And the only project for next year that I wanted to bring up is that I did hear back just via email from the state MDOT, MEDC, and what they're telling us is that they would like to give us some economic development grant money. They don't want to give us as much money as we had asked for. So this is what they've proposed so far. I haven't reached back out to them yet to see if there's any room for negotiation, or was this the final offer, take it or leave it. The way that we had applied was the way that we got that bridge improvement done. which was really an 80-20, so 80% grant, 20% local match, and what they came back to offer us is 60%, like a 60-40, so 60% grant, 40% local match. So that's some of what we wanted to get a feel from you tonight. What we'd like to do for council's direction, the last time we brought this before council, is once I am sure that I've got my final number and I've gotten everything I can get from MDOT, we'd like to be able to approach BASF and just have a little negotiating room to do some cost sharing. I don't think they're going to agree to do $400,000 in an SAD, but you know, possibly a 50-50 is kind of where I was thinking that would seem fair.
My thought process on this, I'll be meeting with Bill Zagman tomorrow. This is their first offer. I'd like to do a counter back, but I think at the end of the day, my recommendation is that if BSF and some of the other neighboring properties be asked to come to the table, some type of SAD. I will prepare a history of some of the tax appeals in that neighborhood. There have been some substantial tax appeals. BSF has been one of those beneficiaries. But you know, frankly, we were very generous with the bridge, and maybe you know, I think we have to have a different level of engagement. But this is the first, and actually the state was really struggling with this, because what they came back at one point, they said those jobs are going to either be in Southfield or Wyandotte. And they were arguing, you know, Michigan's getting the benefit, why should we be at the table? We put some pressure on them, but I think we're going to come back and put a little bit more pressure. You know, if we can get them up another 5-10%, and then sit down with BSF. And, you know, that's where we're at. I don't see anything happening. There is one other option, and that is to change our design standard. Our current design, Leigh, if I misstep, correct me, is all concrete with substantial stormwater drainage and that. The other would be to, we could go back to the state and say, we could make this project work, but we're going to do an asphalt cross section, but probably not address the stormwater. I think at the end of the day, the problem with this road is it's stormwater. I mean, there's a lot happening. It doesn't have adequate drainage. And if we were to do an asphalt section, by the time we cut up that road, we would find a base. And you know, when you do a project like this with MDOT, whatever the extras are on our dime. So I would rather go in with a full new concrete road, adequate stormwater, and know it's going to be done right. And we'll have a 30 to 40-year concrete road, provided it's maintained.
Marilyn, I wanted to go back to the DTE interfering with our construction schedule. Is there any liability for DTE?
Yes, there is. So through this process, we have to work through with the contractor about all of the extras that this is going to be. So there's already likely to be extras even without this latest snafu, just because it was pushing our pavement operations back into colder months. So then there's cold weather protection. You can still pay the concrete, it just costs more money. They've got blankets and everything else that they use. And so we've already been knowing anyway that we need to sit down, and we'll be doing that probably as soon as the active construction wraps up, to sit down with Dan's and come to an agreement on how much of the delay was caused to Dan's own operations and how much of this delay was caused by DTE gas. Right now, as we've been talking at meetings, we're not exactly eye to eye on where that responsibility lies with their schedule right now, but something like this, it's very clear cut. You know, here we are, we're in the final stretch. We knew exactly what was supposed to be happening in these last several weeks of the project, and DTE gas is going to, they said it, a week and a half. And that's a week and a half of work. Our problem before was just getting them out there to do the work. So I'm hoping if they come to the table and come quick, and if the weather cooperates, maybe there's a chance that we still get it done this year. It's a big cost to DTE gas if this doesn't get done until next year. The contractor was fully expecting to complete it this year.
And the kicker was on this, is that they already cost us one delay on it, and then they can't come back a second time and say, well, we want to wrap the second pipe. And I get that and respect that from a public safety standpoint, but why wasn't it done concurrently? That's the rub for us. I did speak to the city attorney about it. We'll go through the process as Ms. Schultz has said, but we could find ourselves, you know, hopefully DTE will do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've had...
Understatement of the evening.
We've had other projects where we've had to have the private utility companies pay for extras because of their work or special construction methods maybe that they were requiring because they had shallow utilities. So it's not unusual for something like this to come up. The thing is, with this being delayed until next year, if that's really what ends up happening, that's a remobilization for a major contractor. I mean, you're putting down probably $50,000 worth of temporary asphalt and then spending another $10,000, $20,000 to remove it again in the spring. I mean, these costs could run upwards of $350,000 in extras. And, you know, and there's many elements of it that are very clearly DTE gas, and DTE gas is aware of it. And then there's others that, you know, will probably be doing quite a bit of back and forth to see if this is Dan's responsibility or DTE gas. Ultimately, we start the negotiations with Dan's, and hopefully we can come to an agreement with them. And then they always have the right to appeal. If we are not coming to an agreement, they take it up to MDOT, and ultimately MDOT can have the final say. And once it's all said and done, it's DTE gas that is kind of left with MDOT's decision, although it's up to us to turn around and go after DTE gas to recover those funds.
Okay. You said that we can lay the cement in the winter in the cold. When does it get too cold? Because the temperature seems to be dropping rapidly fast. And so when you start talking about mid-November, and we were almost in the 30s the other night, when is it too cold, and who's monitoring?
Yeah, MDOT has pretty specific guidelines on temperatures of when you can start paving or what the temperature is at that time of morning, and then it has to be rising that day. So sometimes it's a big difference of if the sun is coming out that day. So MDOT guidelines are pretty strict with at what temperature cold weather protection is required and when they can actually pour. Typically, if there's not frost in the ground yet, they can still pour it. A lot of times it's just a matter of cost. They can go in, they can actually heat the ground. They bring their concrete generates quite a bit of heat itself. They blanket over top of that. So it's a little different from asphalt. Asphalt is like the plant's closed down about mid-November, and there's not much you can do. If it gets too cold, you're done with asphalt. With concrete, you do have some options. It's just all a matter of cost.
And so when is spring? You said we'll start back in spring. When is spring?
That's a lot of times weather dependent. I usually think April. I mean, but sometimes it can be March if we're mild and that snow melt gets out and the frost leaves the ground. That's usually what we're waiting for, is the frost.
No, it wouldn't have been this. Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Ball.
Yeah, on this specific project, which is I'm a stick in the mud about this one because it's one that I've been dealing with since even before I was in council and working in Rudy's office. I just want to make council just like understand the context that the city partnering with the state is getting them that 60%. So it is so tough for me to absorb, you know, the extra 40% or even any sort of percentage of that 40%. And any negotiation that can be done on the city's behalf to, you know, maybe increase that percentage on the state's end, I support. But even in talking with the businesses that are impacted by that road, we have to really be crystal clear that, you know, our partnership is getting that state funding. And for us to absorb the rest is really not an option.
It will also include what we've already put in.
Yeah, and when you drive down Leigh Baker or Maple Ridge or other roads throughout the city, I just can't justify, you know, putting that type of an investment on a road that when residents, and we're asking them to, you know, now vote on a bond proposal, you know, we have to be showing that, you know, we're going to be very extra careful about what dollars go to what roads. And it just doesn't sit well with me to put that type of investment in that road. So I'm hoping that the negotiations can at least cover the state part even more, but then we go right back to those entities and say, look, that's part of the city partnership by applying for this grant and by being a participant in that.
And that's going to be part of the art, because we've said earlier, as part of the DUR project, we want to ask the state for a couple piece there too, and there's got to be a better balance, and frankly, my balance looks at the sheer volume of cars that drive down the road, and this is not a heavily trafficked road. It's a lot easier to justify. If I had to choose between one or the other, I'd probably be on the side of Lasser or First Center before 11 Mile, just based on sheer volume. And I'm prepared to tell that to BSF that, you know, we get so many opportunities. I think we've already kind of greased the skids on DUR with the state. We're asking the road commission to carry that water on Lasser, but they may come back and say, you know, Southfield, you're getting a whole bunch of money here.
So that's just my 2 bits on that particular project, which I'm going to be a stick in the mud about, including when next year, if I have to see this again.
Mr. Prakash.
I guess we'll vent a little bit. We're making judgment calls on these roads, and Jeremy brings up a good point, which I respect, is that, we talk about Evergreen Road. I don't know where we got this. This has to be the greatest road that was ever built in the world. To spend $12 million. Last year road was only $5.6 million. You got 5 lanes of beautiful concrete. I'm only saying that because we've got to get into these neighborhoods. I just told Larry that Red Leaf Lane, for example, that concrete was just absolutely gone. And everybody goes into that whole area, has to go down a concrete road that's gravel. And I don't see us really looking at these really bad spots in the city and taking care of what has to get done. I guess I go down these streets all the time. I mean, I just watch us and walk them, and I'm telling you, I don't see the workmanship. I just see things that are not inspected properly, and all due respect to all these people. You know how much it takes to ride herd on all these projects that we're doing? And I don't know who Larry just gave me the inspector's name, emailed me, but I never see an inspector out there. I mean, I walk this thing 2-3 times a week, and I never see anybody but workers, and they just keep doing their thing, and then you got 11 Mile Road going, you got Evergreen and 8 Mile, 9 Mile Road going, and the trucks are on Inkster Road that are working on 11 Mile Road. I mean, what kind of damage are they going to be doing on that new road? And here, Telegraph Road is only 5 years old, and it's gone. It's gone. I mean, I can take you down there. I mean, it's cracked. I mean, 10, 20 places it's actually cracked. You go underneath the I-696, that whole lane, or Easter Lane, is gone. And it is cracked all the way up the middle, all the way to Myers. And I guess what I'm getting at is we're spending all this money, and I just think that we better have more than 5 years of guarantee on these roads that are being done. And I don't think we're getting it. I mean, I hate to keep bringing it up. That median is going on 6 years, and it's still like garbage. And and I hate to use the terminology, but I mean, I get tired of that. I mean, I see this stuff, and I go to all these jobs. I look at Groton, and it's got holes by the apartments there. There's big holes by the driveway. You know, I mean, I seen a guy trailing asphalt trailer the other day in the rain. I don't know where he's going. What is he out in the rain? A street sweeper swept in the middle of rain. Street sweeper. All the leaves came down after the rain. And all these, I don't know what they call them, these elms, some kind of Chinese elms, all got this yellow stuff all over everything. You know, so all the streets got all the leaves. I mean, they all need to be cleaned if people don't go out in the street and pick up. I do, but I mean, I don't know anybody else that does. You know, I say that, Gary, but I mean, I just like to clean my street. But, man, I mean, I just get tired. You know, I go to Inglenook, you know, and we did that little crappy thing in the middle, you know, the swale, and yet, at the end, at the west end, when they turn the radius, they drive over the swale. I mean, there's nothing stopping, there's not a curb there, they just make that circle to go around, and they just cut right over the dirt. I mean, you know, I guess maybe I'm just tired of talking about it, but I just think, you know, I mean, if you think about it, you got $6.5 million going on Section 31, you got $12 million here, you got $1 million going here, you got $6 million going on Evergreen, you got so much million going on 11 Mile Road. I mean, who's making sure that I'm not going to have to fix Inkster Road again? We come over here, we did Civic Center Drive, and they're driving on Civic Center Drive, and we just did it. You know, I mean, this stuff can't take that weight. You know, it just can't until it's cured properly. And you know, and I don't know why. I'd like to have an answer why they have to saw cut these roads just so that we get railroad tracks. You know, 2 years later, you know, the whole street goes till we get thump everywhere you go. 275. You think you got flat tires. I mean, something wrong with the engineering, the way we do things anymore, and they'll never catch it. They can have $1 billion a year, which is saying to fix our highways. If they don't do them, and give us 25 years, 20 years at least, you're not going to. You're going to have $10 billion a year. And I just think the city ought to be cautious. You know, I mean, we're running in the winter. Now they're going to try to stretch it to most they can to save some money. You know, the timing of these contracts getting out on the street. You know, we're not finishing them every year anymore. They're now, it's going to be a 2-year project, 3-year project. And I just don't see anything being completed and finished. I know I'm venting, but I tell you, I've been in that business, and I could never make a living if I did things this way. Could never make a living. It's got to be done time-wise. Every time you're paying a mortgage commitment, when that building isn't done at such and such a time, you're still paying that money. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, bank don't say, oh, you're not going to finish till next year. That's fine. Just make sure you give me every month, you know. And it's, I don't know, private business does things differently, I guess. It's, they know they have to save money. That's all I have to say. I don't have to stop driving through the city walking or something.
Ride your bike.
Mr. Frazier.
Get a bike, yeah. I'll find a bike rack somewhere and park it.
Yeah, I have just a couple of questions. One is, do you have an update on the exit off the lodge on the 9 mile exit off the lodge? Where are we at on that one?
Nowhere right now.
What's the
I
issue?
mean, that,
Well, they're gonna-
they've,
Oh, right.
Oh, Northwestern Highway.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it was
that's right.
scheduled for the spring, and we're in engineering.
No, off the lodge.
Off
The
the-
9 mile exit off the lodge, past Hudson's, where we're gonna shrink the thing from three lanes to two.
So that whole service drive project for
Yeah.
next year? I mean, that's just still under design, so nothing really much has changed. We're still planning a 2015 construction, and the, you know, we have had some initial meetings with the property owners, the business owners particularly in that area. So no one expressed any great concern about us closing it down in advance of the actual road construction. It will also give us an opportunity with our own contractor, since we're going to be taking over a water main, we'll be able to get some water main stubs in while that road's shut down, and some new hydrants on that road too. So, which will be good. At least people will see some construction activity for the probably 2-3 months before the road project starts. So,
Is it gonna make a difference that they got problems over at Northland?
yeah, you know, we actually have a meeting set up, which I was really glad. That was one of my concerns, because some of the realignment of those drive approaches, we need a temporary easement from that property owner. So I was a little worried once Brent Reese was out of the picture, that who my next contact was going to be, because, you know, and I'm hoping that they're gonna be amicable in donating those temporary easements. When you're dealing with federal money, you're always obligated to show them what that temporary easement value would be, and then they have to sign off if they're willing to donate. So Brent Reese has been cooperative in doing that in the past, like for the water main project out on Greenfield. So I'm hoping that our new contact there will be also amenable. You know, the drive approaches, worst case, I don't know how much I'm really willing to pay for them, so if they're not willing to donate, we'll probably just leave them as is and not touch them.
The other question I have is, it's a curiosity. The stormwater drains on Evergreen Road are out in the middle of the driving lane. Is that new design, or, because I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Well, those are the existing catch basins that were in the old gutter line. So they just changed out the covers, and then they had to pave over what used to be green belt when they removed that curb and put down that temporary asphalt.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? So those drainage structures are still like sitting there in the middle of the lane when it used to be on the edge of the lane right at the curb.
Now, is that going to be a problem with, now, I know it's not going to be a problem with plowing the snow, but stuff going in there that normally wouldn't have gone in it, being in the curb line rather than in the middle of the driving lane?
You know, I'm sorry, when that's rebuilt, it will be rebuilt into the new curb line. So when they do the east side of the
So
road.
this is only temporary?
Yeah, where that asphalt is.
Oh, okay.
And where that is in the center, that's
Well,
just temporary.
You're gonna move those over, oh, okay.
But that won't matter, because we'll be driving on the new concrete come
Well,
winter.
this winter, we won't have to worry about it, and that's kind of where we were getting into that little bit of a juggle. It's like, okay, how much is this gonna cost us? We can't have freezing temperatures and ponding water on this asphalt that's only this thick, and so that's when we decided to go one lane in each direction for the winter, but keep it, all of that traffic over winter will be on the new pavement, so at least we don't have to worry about the drainage problems on that asphalt where it is now, and that asphalt falling apart.
Okay.
Mr. Stiver?
Leigh, can you and/or Larry, I know you're busy, but somebody needs to go down and look at Laura Lane off 9 Mile and Leigh Baker. I mean, Laura Lane looks like it's got measles. There's so many patches on that street. And again, it's marked on the map that went out as not being a second-tier priority for 5 years out. You know, the potholes are huge on Leigh Baker. I don't know.
Yep, will do.
Somebody needs to look at it.
We had, since we're on just public projects, in our council package this last week, they had the road commission for Oakland County, and they had the 2016, where they're spending the money. And when you look to see what Southfield is getting compared to all the other cities, it's unbelievable. I mean, they're only getting $500,000 for Greenfield between 10 Mile and the Southfield on the Oak Park Road.
other side, when, you know, other communities are getting 23 million and 5.5 million, and Beverly Hills 8.8 million. I mean, the money is unbelievable, Milford. So what can we do to approach them and have some discussions to get more money for our roads when we're a large city in Oakland County?
Right, every 2 years, we sit down with the leadership at the road commission, and we give them what our priority county roads are within our city. So that's something that we've been doing, which is probably what spurred this 10-mile and Southfield intersection work that's about to wrap up, which I should have mentioned. It was more of a maintenance project for them, but that should be all open this week, by the way. So, but those type of things, I mean, we knew that Southfield Road itself, the whole road, because it's under this environmental assessment, isn't going to be fully reconstructed for years to come. So those are the kind of things that they're trying to pay attention to. We've had conversations with them about that piece of Lasher many times, actually, between Civic Center and the freeway there.
That's actually our next identified project.
Yeah, and that's...
Southfield Road?
No, Lasser.
Yeah, there's just that one piece of Lasser that's left. But I mean, really, in the past few years, we've had a lot of road commission projects in Southfield, as well as MDOT projects. And I know this because our match is always like hitting our road budget at a time when it's hard to afford. But we still welcome the opportunity for them to come in and take care of these roads. You know, Lasser was a total reconstruction from 11 to 12 mile. They've improved some other sections of Lasser previously. We've got that 1.5 mile stretch left. And then they did that 12 mile between Evergreen and Southfield a few years back, and the year before that they were out on 10 mile from Evergreen over to Telegraph. So, I mean, I feel like we've had our fair share. We definitely still have some priorities. I think that last winter, 10 miles took an especially big hit between Greenfield and Evergreen. It's like that really blew up over this last winter. And, you know, I'm getting concerned it's not every piece of it, but, you know, there's stretches of it that are becoming reminiscent of Greenfield Road with those joints being blown out one after another after another. So the next time we meet with them, that's another one of the priority areas that I would be pushing for them to go after funding.
I think it would be appropriate to have the road commission come in. In the budget the state legislature adopted, there was additional money set aside for road. I didn't pull up the county number, but I believe Oakland County Road, it's over additional $4 million that they're getting in their budget. Each of it's coming in a quarter, and they probably, the time there was budget put together, wasn't aware. They weren't aware that they were getting that extra money. It's not, these are funds outside of the Act 51 distribution, but it was a special allocation within the general fund. For example, Southfield will be picking up another I think it's like 56,000 is the amount we're getting out of that. Again, it's a one-time allocation, far cry from if the governor were to get the full $1.5 billion that he has asked for, we would pick up another $4.5 million, assuming the Act 51 distribution formula is the same. So even in our case, the message is we're going to pick up an extra $450,000 in our budget starting October 1 on the state fiscal year forward, and then Oakland County has extra money that they probably get there. So I think the timing's good to bring them in and go through. We also got Greenfield Road too, which is a huge, you know, we had identified that as our top priority. So, you know, I think we need to keep the pressure on them.
Please don't forget to engage your county commissioners.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the communication portion of the agenda.